Alright, Madara's Whistle in Bloodborne. A very unique type of hunter tool. It looks cool, it has great scaling all the way up to 99, and therefore pretty massive damage output. But let me tell you, when you try to go through the game using this tiny instrument exclusively, you will be surprised how it's even possible for something you blow on to suck this hard. And ironically, that's not at all what I expected. I mean, you would think that a giant hitbox like this would make things rather easy. Until you realize it might be a leftover from Dark Souls 2 and will lead to quite a decent amount of frustration. Moreover, it costs 4 bullets each time you use it, so by adding runes and blood bullets to it, you can use it around 32 times at most. Which doesn't sound bad at all, but that's without taking healing into account. And due to how this instrument works, you tend to take damage quite frequently. In fact, often even intentionally, just to keep the boss in question in the right position long enough. Because given how slow this attack is, and how fast-paced this game is, you will miss often. Very often. So, running out of bullets is a constant issue. In fact, I completely miscalculated how complicated and frustrating this run would be, or rather become, the further you get into the game. So, if you hate yourself and squirting Tabasco sauce up your ass doesn't do it for you anymore, or you have an audience of sadists to entertain, then you might want to try beating Bloodborne whistle damage only. Actually, not even then, because this run blows. Regardless. Start off as the noble Scion origin. You know what, I simply declare that to be the correct pronunciation. I mean, people say that this word is pronounced pupa, but that cannot possibly be true. But the point is that we need to start with the highest amount of Bloodtinge. And then we need to perform the gate skip, since Madara's Whistle requires the death of Walter. And this is the only way we can get there, since we have no way to do any sort of damage until we can start huffing and puffing. Which you would already be doing after climbing a tall ladder, but this time we are actually descending it. In case you didn't get that, that was the Snake Eater theme in reverse. And rightly so, because in this run, it's the snake who is doing all the eating. You will likely get poisoned along the way, but there is a set of antidotes on the other side. And then make sure that you light the first lantern here in the Forbidden Woods. However, we will have to go all the way around to actually reach Walter and open up the shortcut. So in the meantime, you can pick up anything you like to sell for blood echoes, because there isn't a whole lot other than the whistle that we can use to begin with. Although punch and blood cocktails can still come in handy, for example here to safely go up the ladder to pick up the cannon, which sells for quite a lot. By the way, as you notice from the blood echo counter, merely running through the woods already gives you some blood echoes from enemies dying without you even having to do anything. And speaking of enemies and dying, another thing you can do right before the shortcut is to get obliterated by Mr. Keksnack. Although that is optional, of course. Then again, it does kind of set the tone for what the rest of the run is going to be like. But then we finally reach Walter. So wave to him, hi Walter. But now we have a problem. He has to die for us to get access to the whistle. But we cannot do any damage to even aggro him, let alone kill him. Now, fortunately, there is such a thing as friendly fire between enemies and NPCs. So that would be unfriendly fire or just enemy... Well, I know, but if you lure an enemy to Walter, then by him trying to attack you, he will damage Walter by accident, and for some reason that will automatically make him hostile towards you. So after the hit that counts as the final drop in the bucket, he will start attacking you, meaning you can lure him to the elevator. You cannot be too fast though, although if you're too slow then he will ride along with you and that will not get the results you want. Well, fortunately we did light the lantern and he stays aggroed, so we can simply try again. And if you are fast enough, because of the fall damage, it is him kicking the bucket this time. Which doesn't grant you the whistle yet, but it will make the NPC spawn that will drop it when killed. So let's go back to reset the area. Whoa, fuck, you don't actually need to do that. Whoa, okay, then quickly get them to the elevator. Oh, because that now is probably too quick. The actual fucking fuck. Well, we did get the whistle, so yay. Now, since we are in the forest anyway, we're not out of the woods yet. Because we obviously need some fashion appropriate for the insanity of this run. And the quite rarely seen Grave Warden outfit would fit quite nicely. So in order to get it, you need to jump here with the circle button and not L3. God damn it, I can know it this game, beat it on New Game Plus 6 at Bill 4, and beat the game without using stamina, but yeah, jumping is a little bit above my skill level, I think. So, after going all the way around, we do make the jump and get the appropriate fashion. You see, that looks really... Okay, let me just... Okay, now it looks fashionable. That makes you want to whistle. But about the whistle itself, even though it does pure arcane damage, it skills with Bloodtinge for some reason. So let's sell everything and use cold blood and whatnot to crank up our Bloodtinge level. And then all we have to do is wait for Snake to show up. So, where is he? I mean, I know Snake is known for being kind of stealthy, but I don't really see him anywhere. I mean, I do have to whistle now, so... Snake? Snake? Snake! Do you perhaps know where Snake... Oh, he doesn't want to talk to me. Well, what I do see is a very cute-looking doll who is just begging to get catcalled.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Snake! Yeah, okay, I guess I deserve that. I mean, she's not a blow-up doll after all, so you gotta behave yourself. However, let that type of death set the tone for the entire run. Because you can inflict massive damage upon yourself when blowing the whistle, and there isn't really any poison in this game, and only rare cases of hyper armor. So getting hit while using it may result in you getting locked in place, causing inevitable death. Fortunately, the opposite can happen as well, especially in the first boss fight against Father Gascoigne. But first we need to get there, of course. And you know, some bold hunter's marks may come in handy, so let's pay a visit to Eileen for... Oh, fuck, that's right. Yeah, made that same mistake in my bolt-only run. However, contrary to that playthrough, after doing the gate skip, I was still able to pick up the music box. Probably because in that one I already picked up the tonsil stone, which I didn't do this time. So I was surprised to find patches inside this house, meaning no music box. Well, I guess that when you sequence break a game, you shouldn't be surprised when weird things happen. Whoa, but that's really weird. Since when can trolls gather bladders? That literally never happened before. This guy takes being a troll way too seriously. So yeah, no music box, which would have been great to make Gascoigne stand in place to allow me the opportunity to hit him with Flute Snack. So without it, when exactly am I supposed to blow the whistle? Well, as I said, it can also happen that an attack knocks you out of the incoming hitbox and get the enemy inside of it. And on top of that, the damage is really good, which made me extremely hopeful for the rest of the run. But you see, hope is given to you to make you feel even more crushed when it's taken away in a game like this. Oh, and despite the hitbox being quite large, hitting Gascoigne through the gravestones doesn't work. Was a nice idea though, but again, him knocking you back and himself into the incoming hitbox works quite well. Moreover, when he transforms into a beast, there's a non-damaging AoE. So that's an even better application of that same principle. You get the attack opportunity, and he unintentionally causes you to not get hit by the incoming snake attack. Now, having said that, even though that worked very well here, as I said at the start, taking damage in order to deal damage with an attack that you can insta-kill yourself with becomes a bit of an issue once you get into the later stages of the game. Fortunately, we do have the ability to distract the BSB with blood cocktails, and that gives us really good opportunities to summon the snake. Although the damage on this boss was lower than I expected. Remember that this is pure arcane damage, and a lot of bosses have high arcane defenses. But still, this boss is easy to hit with this strat, given how erratic she moves around to begin with, which would make it extremely hard to hit her with such a slow attack. Unfortunately, I got a little too overconfident, because the boss attacks the blood cocktails after all, meaning that you can get hit by accident, which resulted in me nearly dying from poison. A little too close for comfort, in fact. Unfortunately, when I ran out of blood cocktails, the beast went full berserk mode. And yeah, when the fuck would it be safe to whistle without whiffing and without getting walloped in the process? Well, in our third phase, the boss occasionally stands in place to charge up the giant poison AoE. So if you're quick enough, that is the right opportunity to get the final hit in. And because the hitbox of the snake is so large, it should be easy to hit the... What the fuck? Yeah, that didn't count. Alright, but with some patience you can get the final hit in, and the second boss goes down. Well, although beating the BSB does give you access to the Com dungeon, at this point I was still under the impression that this would just be a rather easy gimmick run. So initially I wanted to do it without easy echoes and just collect them from selling things you find in the world. Moreover, I obviously don't just want to arbitrarily level up for no reason at all. So instead I got the Dull Clothes and Cold Blood and whatnot, and because I already had the Kano summons, because of the gate skip, I chose to go to the witches next, so I could pay a visit to Canehurst before going to Amelia. And as you would expect, the witches weren't that big of a deal, since they aren't exactly very mobile or arcane resistant. However, hitting them a second time to prevent them from teleporting is a bit of an issue. And also, this attack doesn't make them bloody, so that makes it hard to tell which witch is which. That makes it hard to distinguish between the two witches. But despite all of that, I still ended up getting their health bars down quite evenly, meaning that the telekinesis attack wasn't that much of an issue. So afterwards, I quickly went through Canehurst to pick up all the valuable items, allowing me to get to 44 Bloodtinge already. Moreover, because of the rune tool you get after the witches, I could now hold more blood vials and bullets. So things were looking very good. And given that it was time for Amelia now, and especially given how this fight went, you can understand why I did not see the upcoming frustration coming that I would experience later on in the run. Because this is exactly the level of OPness, of overpoweredness that I expected. A nice little gimmick run, more so than an actual challenge run. But remember what I said before about hope. Now, having said that, I'm also not completely stupid. After all, the shadows would be next, and they are not only extremely agile and small targets, but they have actual dodge animations. So therefore I thought it would be smart to get a few extra blood echoes by going to Amygdala first. And I initially thought that farming the students would be a good way to get a lot of echoes quickly. And well, that did not exactly seem to be the case. So I just directly made my way to Amy. And although he lowers his head, given how slow my attack is, I thought it would be better to go for the arms instead, and that indeed proved to be quite effective. Although, when he gets into second phase, your timing has to be very precise because of the AoEs around his hands. But still, relatively easy damage opportunities on his arms. And when he rips them off, you are actually safe right in front of his crotch, which often causes him to jump up, and that will give you the perfect headshot opportunity. Again, so far, so good. But then I got a little too overconfident, I think, because I thought, you know what, I'm around the Bloodtinge soft cap already, things are going very well, so let's mix things up a bit by going through the DLC early on. Because, well, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I did manage to beat Ludwig without using stamina after all. So I thought I would have no problem beating him by blowing on a whistle. But I guess I was just blowing smoke up my own ass, because Ludwig ended up kicking it. Because he may be a rather big target, but he is very maneuverable, and you cannot just exchange regular melee attack opportunities for whistle attacks, because Ludwig will simply move out of the way before the snake comes out. Now, you might get some hits in by whistling when you're underneath him, which isn't safe to begin with, but then he might still dodge out of the way in time. So for the most part, you need to stay in front of Ludwig to get him to attack into the hitbox of the snake, which means putting yourself into his incoming hitbox, or at the very least uncomfortably close to it. And even then, he might actually dash backwards instead if you whistle too early, because he has to be already in an attack animation for it to not merely be dependent on pure luck whether he moves forward or not. And each time you use a blood vial to heal yourself, you effectively lose another whistle attack, which is a problem because of Ludwig's high health pool and how easy it is to miss an attack in the first place. At least when Ludwig does the sideways moving water attack, he stands still for quite a long time. I mean, he basically signals an obvious attack opportunity as if straight from the horse's mouth. But other than that, I was basically just improvising, and most things I tried didn't really work that well, or at all. Well, in the second phase he no longer moves around that much, so that at least makes him an easier target. The downsides, however, are that his arcane defenses go up, And because your attack is so freaking slow, good luck avoiding damage given how hyper-aggressive Ludwig becomes in this phase. Keep in mind that constantly making blood bullets leaves you vulnerable as well. Extra vulnerable since you are sacrificing health. And remember what I said about having a limited amount of bullets? That becomes even more limited every time you heal. Well, let's just say it was very fortunate that they actually placed a set of blood vials inside of the boss arena. But you know what they say, when you fall off that horse, you get right back up and you eat that horse. So come and eat that horse. Well, actually I don't recommend doing this, it's pretty exhausting. But there you go. Now I actually forgot to pick up the blue elixirs back in the Forbidden Forest. But fortunately there is a set of 2 elixirs over here on the poison. And that is exactly enough to make your way past all the enemies on the way to the top, without having to attack anyone. Now, I could have acquired some brain fluid though, because that would provide you with a special blood vial for emergency situations, but I can't say that even came to mind at the time. And I kind of wish that it had though. Yeah, the living failures have some really high arcane defenses and already a large health pool. Now fortunately they are not that hard to hit with the whistle as long as you focus on the casters rather than on the melee ones, given that those are quick and mobile, and the casters move around much slower, and when they are casting projectiles, they are standing still, making them perfect targets for your whistle. And if you are really lucky, given how aggressive the melee ones are, they can actually follow you right into the incoming hitbox of the serpent for some really nice double damage from a single attack. And those moments are extremely helpful, because given how easy it is to still take damage, because that's obviously kind of the nature of this run, as should be apparent by now, and the fact that the failures actually hit like a truck, and the fact that you need a shit ton of blood bullets to make it through this fight at all, that means that there's a real danger again of running out of bullets. Yeah, as I said, I wish I had exchanged some brain fluid for an extra blood vial, or simply acquired the one from Yosefka. Because running out of bullets and without enough health left for one final set of blood bullets really is a pain up the old skin flute. Yeah, so in the end there was no point anymore in living, and maybe the true failures were the ones we experienced along the way. But after trying again and conserving my health a little bit better, especially by playing things a little bit safer during the meteor phase, and being extra careful to not mindlessly blow through my valuable bullet reserves, I did manage to make it through. However, there's no chance to blow off any steam, because now we need to fight a boss that under these circumstances really will make you call her a lady. Although I don't think it was very ladylike for her to be that fascinated with my O-face, but you know, modern times. Well, Victorian times, so old times, but modern compared to earlier. Well, anyway, if it wasn't clear already that this one would not be as easy as I initially expected it to be, then this fight makes that abundantly clear. Because how the fuck do you hit a small target that constantly dashes all over the place with a slow attack like this? Standard melee strategies don't give you that opportunity. I mean, she's gone before you even get the chance to inhale. And because of the lack of poison in this game, she can very easily cancel your whistle animation when you try to stay in front of her. So whenever I did manage to hit her, it was just a matter of pure luck, where she just happened to not dash away, turning it into a game of rolling dice where you only get a hit in if you roll 6s. Unfortunately, I was mainly rolling snake eyes. So I ran out of bullets before even getting her into the second phase. Yeah, this was not gonna work. And therefore I decided to continue onward into the main game first and leave this fight for later. Because I was afraid that I was going to blow a fuse against Maria. But of course then I realized that the shadows would be next. And they are not really that much of an improvement over Maria. Because these guys are nearly impossible to hit with an attack this slow. In fact, even at the start, where I assumed I would be able to hit all 3 of them at the same time, 2 of them still dodged out of the way in time. Well, at least I did really good damage. Which did make me feel hopeful, but that was quickly crushed by the fact that it's so difficult to actually get another hit in. So basically I had to intentionally take a hit, or at least put myself into a position wherein it would be likely that I would take damage, in order to keep the attacking shadow in place. But not only did that leave me vulnerable to getting comboed to death, but that could also prevent me from dodging out of the way of the serpent. So the spacing issues were even greater than they already tend to be in this particular fight. Also, despite my high damage output, because it's so easy to miss and so easy to take damage yourself, the limited amount of bullets really became an issue again. First of all, I wasn't really sure in which order I should kill the shadows. So I went for my usual approach, katana one first, then the mace one, and then the candle one. Although I obviously wouldn't be able to stun lock the candle one at the end, like with a melee weapon. But it did seem to me that the mace one would be the easiest to hit in the second phase, because he stands still when casting his fire projectiles. But actually, precisely because of that, killing him second was definitely the wrong decision. Because when the candle shadow remained, it became the battle of the twin snakes. And although mine did solid damage, his ones moved around as if through liquid. And speaking of moving around, I couldn't find any opportunity that would allow me to get a hit in. The only thing I could think of would be when he's doing the fire breath, which is precisely how I got the first hit in. But then he just wouldn't do it anymore. He just wouldn't do it anymore. I thought I knew how to trigger it, by staying a certain distance away from him, but apparently that doesn't really work in the final phase. And my bullet and blood vial reserve got lower and lower and lower. Obviously I had no live commentary when doing this, but I think that you can still feel the frustration from the footage alone. Yeah, I was spitting venom at this point, saying some very unpleasant things. But can you really blame me for speaking with a serpent's tongue after all of that? Well, I first made the decision, given that I was in the company of 3 gentlemen, that I should cover up my torso, and I made sure this time to leave the mace shadow for last. Because then at least I would have a little bit of an easier target when frantically running around the Viper's nest. Still, emphasis on a little bit. Yeah, I like these kind of gimmicky tools. It's a very fun way of playing the game. You know, because of the creativity and such. It's fun. Alright, but perhaps after that total shit show, things will go smoothly again. Well, first I regretted not picking up blue elixirs once more. And then when facing Rom, the obvious realization came that I had no way to deal with all of the small spiders. I mean, there are way too many of them, and you already need to sacrifice 4 bullets just to make Rom's life bar appear. So it was all about avoiding the small spiders and sneaking hits in on Rom herself. However, hitbox issues. After all, Rom has no appendages sticking out, so when standing next to her and summoning the snake, yeah, that's rough. So I tried to aim for the space next to her neck, so to speak, which at least resulted in a partial hit. But that's some seriously low damage given our limited amount of attacks. So then I tried dashing into her, which, well, obviously doesn't work. However, it did have results unintentionally, since Rom is designed to face towards you as much as possible, so her movement placed her inside of the hitbox. Moreover, it seems like Rom doesn't take reduced damage if you hit her head from below. So, contrary to any other playthrough, her head was actually a good target this time. However, during the third phase, things were getting a bit crowded around her, making things a little clusterfucky. Especially because she now gains her melee attack. I mean, can you even call it a melee attack? Well, whatever. Be that as it may, you only live multiple times, so instead of a strategy, I just went for it. But that was definitely quite tense, and it certainly made me sweat. So afterwards I made sure to air out my torso, like a lady. Hey, it's still better than Queen Yharnam here airing out her dirty laundry. Well, I was expecting a similar problem with the One Reborn, namely that I wouldn't have enough bullets to deal with the bell ladies, even with the set of 10 in the corner on the upper floor. So I chose to ignore them altogether. After all, the One Reborn has some really high arcane defenses. So I tried to get to his entrails as quickly as possible to get a stagger and then basically just simulate my standard melee strategy of attacking each limb in succession to keep the boss constantly on the ground and unable to attack. Fortunately, the fireballs of the Well Maidens don't do a lot of damage, so they were more a nuisance in the sense of interrupting your animations. However, when I reached the final limb, something very strange happened. I got some weird sort of partial stagger animation. I mean, the boss did stagger, but did not fall on the ground. And hitting that limb again did not cause him to fall down either. So yeah, then full clusterfuck mode was initiated, because now I had to find an attack opportunity with the boss flailing around, while also avoiding fireballs. Now, fortunately, after a while, the boss does become staggerable. Staggerable? Is that a word? Well, you can get him on the ground again by hitting the entrails once more. Still not enough, but I found an opportunity to get the final hit in. What the fuck? That didn't connect? Eh. Okay, so then I was able to get the final... You freaking trouser snake! How the hell would that not count as a hit? Yeah, so then I needed to avoid gore above me, fire around me, and vomit underneath me. Friday evenings, am I right? But at least then I got the final hit in. Okay then, time for Micolash, and fighting him in the room with the two marionettes would be a bad idea. Not only because those marionettes are way too maneuverable, but given how slow my attacks are, there would be a risk of them resurrecting before ending the first phase. So I went for the no Hunter Dream strat here, where I only kill the marionette in front of that little hallway, before that room, and then lure Micolash inside that tiny hallway. Okay, get over here, Mickey. Yeah, it may sound like that would make it easy, but even though he has way less space to move around here, he becomes incredibly unpredictable. And I have to wait for him to attack first, otherwise he might attack me while I'm whistling. And not only isn't the damage that great, Mickey is just such a fucking antenna-wearing dickhead, and I just get so impatient with him. But, well, ironically, his tentacle actually pushed me outside of the serpent's hitbox, which would have killed me. So I decided to turn that into my strategy instead, for just getting hits in that way. I mean, I wouldn't exactly call it elegant or anything. I mean, what would you call it? I guess the proper word for it would be...
Oh, majestic!
Well, fortunately, up here in the maze there are some bullets to pick up, as well as some blood vials. Which is a good thing, because I obviously cannot hit him from up on the balcony. But I also cannot do a plunge attack. So I decided to run up behind him, because the closer you stay to him, the less likely it is that he will call you into the great beyond. So in principle, the fight would just continue like before. Although he does gain the ability to punch, would be a real dick move if, unlike the tentacle attack, that would not push you outside of the serpent hitbox, but actually lock you in place. Ah! What the hell? But I mean, that should count, right? I mean, if Prey Solid would appear, which it didn't because his dialogue is too long. And you cannot skip it because the X button doesn't do anything when you are in your own death animation. So no, it did not count. So we have to do all of that over again. You know what? That's just unacceptable. Therefore, you know what time it is.
I want you to do me a favor, Phil.
What?
Say cheese.
So instead of chasing Captain Cockcage into his room, we are instead going to get him stuck in the doorway. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck, fuck, man? What the fuck?
No cheese!
About my whistle, baby, da da da. As on the another Sheila will and I blow my whistle, baby. Flip, flop, flop. Da 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 da. Fee 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 dee. Flippy dee dee dee. La 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 la. Well, the wet nurse should at least be easy, right? At least she would be if she wasn't designed to dodge away from you when you get to her side or behind her. Which is not a problem when doing melee attacks. However, it doesn't allow you to summon the snake in time. So, basically our best bet is to stay in front of her, which still means she might arbitrarily jump away. But if you're lucky, she will move forward and on top of the serpent's hitbox. Emphasis on if you get lucky, especially because of how that freaking hitbox comes straight out of Dark Souls 2. So you can expect a lot of minor chip damage wasting valuable bullets. So I thought I was actually being smart by intentionally not dodging the nightmare phase. For those who don't know, that's actually an AoE attack, meaning you can prevent it by dodging in a specific way. However, how many clones she summons depends on how much health she has left. Meaning that if she does it very early, no clones will appear at all. So that's why I didn't dodge it, to allow for some free hits. Unfortunately, apparently, draining her life bar while she is in the nightmare phase will allow her to summon clones. Yeah, this turned out to be an extremely RNG heavy fight, because you constantly tend to miss, unless she just happens to move forward in time. But after getting a really good pattern, I got really close to victory, and with enough bullets left to finish the fight. So I really needed Snake to do me a solid, but instead he showed me what a conniving viper he could be. Yeah, just have to keep trying. Definitely dodge the AoE this time, which requires you to do a double sidestep when the wave appears from her hands, not before that, and always dodge twice to avoid it consistently. So after praying to the RNG gods, I could put an end to what was arguably meant to be an actual god. So after declaring God is dead, I had to resort to eating babies like a true atheist should. And well, that does take care of any percent completion. But now I had to go back to Maria. And well, I decided that I suffered enough. So in order to prevent blowing a gasket, I decided to enter the camp dungeon to max out my Bloodtinge, so that in turn I could blow Maria's mind.
His strength, it's infinite!
Yeah, it may be cheesy, but at least now it will be easy. Yeah. Well, at least I'm doing more damage now. But the real problem remains avoiding damage. And no, the stupid shield I'm holding doesn't help much either. And also engenders passivity, so that's another issue. But I can't say that I really could figure out any sort of decent strategy other than just tanking hits in order to lure her forward into the hitbox of the snake. Hoping that she wouldn't cancel out the animation. Or lock me in place so that I would get hit by the snake as well. And especially hoping that I could deplete her life bar before she could deplete mine. In the second phase, I mainly tried to bait her charge attacks like you would do when going for a backstab, but instead of getting behind her, I would actually move in front of her, again to lure her into the hitbox. Okay, one final hit? What the hell? Oh, please be a doll and don't have any death dialogue slowing down the... Oh, that should count. Huh. Okay, unlike Micolash, Maria knows when it's time to shut up, like a well-behaved woman, well, like a well-designed boss fight. So, yeah, that's good. Easy. Of course, what you would never even expect to be easy in the first place is Orphan of Kos. And he wasn't, but fortunately, contrary to Maria, the first phase doesn't require a completely different approach from when using melee attacks. Because the two attacks most convenient for backstabs are also the ones that provide an opportunity to sneak in our snake. Because Orphan is a very mobile enemy who can dodge out of the way at any time. In fact, even after he jumps over you or after doing the spinning attack, he might still dodge out of the way in time, but you can somewhat diminish that chance by staying close to him and only move away to prevent getting hit by the snake yourself. So first phase was at least rather straightforward strategy-wise. But the same thing does not apply to phase 2, because then Orphan becomes so aggressive that even backstab opportunities require really strict timing, because the whistle is still slower than a backstab. Another opportunity I had in mind was when he jumps up in the air twice, where the second jump usually lands on top of you, but yeah, good luck timing that. So I came up with two other approaches. One is to attack him while he summons lightning. It's not exactly safe, but at least he's standing still. And because the whistle is so slow, if you're lucky, it hits when Orphan comes out of that animation and no longer takes reduced damage. And if that doesn't happen, at least you manage to get a hit in. And another opportunity is where he dashes sideways and then jumps over you, which you can normally backstab, but instead I chose to dodge the attack itself and then move in to get my own attack in. Not the greatest strat though, because Orphan recovers so quickly that it's still kind of RNG dependent if he actually stays in place long enough. And of course the best opportunity would be when he does the triple stomp, where you can then walk underneath him when he jumps up, which is always the ideal backstab opportunity. But just like when you are fighting him with a melee weapon, he tends to just do that attack way too infrequently. So all in all, I did not exactly have an ideal strategy, making this phase quite lengthy and quite tense indeed. Lawrence was surprisingly not as big of a deal, other than the usual fire AoE shenanigans, but at least he was much easier to hit and didn't require a completely different approach from fighting him with a melee weapon, in none of his phases. So I will leave him for the ending compilation. And the moon presence, well, he was not present because of, well, let's call it technical issues. So what about Gehrman? Well, you know how a fight initially may not look so bad, but when you die after almost beating it, first try, it turned out that it simply went so well because of favorable RNG. That's how the Gehrman fight was. Because at first this fight looked really doable. After all, he launches himself forward and right into the serpent's mouth, so the first phase went by very smoothly. And during the second phase, you can actually manipulate this AI, because for some reason if you dodge his charge attack and stick to his left side, he has a tendency to turn around with you without attacking, meaning that he stays in place and that gives you enough time to summon the snake. And although I was too late during the transition to the third phase, I did get lucky that he just happened to stay in place long enough. In fact, I got really lucky because I almost got Whistle to death right after that. However, that didn't happen. And when he does the giant AoE, that is another free opportunity for damage. So, didn't seem like a big deal at all. But then, when he was so close to death, I kept missing and taking damage, and then I ran out of blood vials. Now, fortunately, this time I made sure that I had Josefka's blood vial as a backup, but Gehrman didn't care that much about it. So yeah, I really blew my opportunity there. Because, as the next hour would show me, this wasn't as easy as I thought it was. I simply got really good RNG during the first attempt. Because the next attempts were anything but as clean as a whistle. Well, anyway, of course there were other bosses left in the game as well. So I think it's compilation time. Because to be fair, at this point I'm kind of out of breath. But fortunately, next up is a breath of fresh air. Namely, Elden Ring. So let's hope that that game won't have a whistle that you summon a mystical animal with. Or heck, maybe it will and I'll get like a torrent of messages about it in the comment section. Who can say? Anyway, time for some instruments that you can actually make some real music with.